What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast. I'm Ronan Gaine. Joining me as always, Chris Nambu. Thank you so much for making this your first podcast for NBA coverage. Remember, you're on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you think. You're on Apple Podcasts, you're on Spotify. Make sure you leave that 5-star review. You do that, we'll keep producing that content. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing the NBA Cup, where the Knicks found out. Do did the Thunder really just show us their championship qualities? And the Rockets finally beat the Warriors. It is a miracle. But before we get into it, Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. I should ask you how you're doing. I mean, I feel like you're a little somber today. I know it's tough. You doing okay?
Yeah, I had a day to recover. So
Yeah.
it's not as fresh. The wind's not as fresh, but
In classic Knicks fashion, this is about you guys losing and not the Hawks winning. The underdogs winning. The Hawks being crowned as the new Pacers of the East. How about we start there? I know this is probably the worst part for you to start at, but I want to talk about the Knicks and Hawks because we've been talking a little bit about the Hawks, but I don't think enough. I don't think people have been talking about them enough. I know I've been talking about Dyson Daniels, but I mean, we saw a game. I think we all kind of saw it coming. Everyone in New York too. The second that Trae Young stepped in the building, there was kind of that fear that something's going to happen, but it didn't happen. I think in the traditional fashion. What did we see there? Are you disappointed in your Knicks? Was it just a cold night? Was it the Hawks defense? Who are you giving credit to? How do you feel?
I want to give credit to the Hawks defense. I want to be positive and give credit to the Hawks defensively because let's not kid ourselves. Not like they did anything overly special offensively. It's not like Trae
No.
Young went off for like
No.
40 points like he's done in the past. It was nothing like that. They just played hard defensively. They managed to get some stops. And in that moment, they were able to score at the right time. They got hot in that third quarter on both ends. They were making stops. Obviously, Knicks obviously missed a few open looks as well, and they were just scoring constantly. They were just putting a beat down on the Knicks defense, and that was ultimately where they won the game. Because then after that, they were just able to play smart, play efficiently, and win the game. So got to give the credit to the Hawks defense. They really are building something here. Like the way Dyson Daniels has just fit in so well. The continued growth of Jalen Johnson. Obviously, Ricochet is starting to have more of an impact. We're kind of seeing a little bit more why he was the number one overall pick. So the Hawks they just love winning in the Garden. They like beating the Knicks. That's just something the Hawks like to do.
Yeah, and I think it's both ways because I talked about the shooting because there's a stretch in the third quarter, extending into the fourth, where the Knicks missed 13 threes in a row.
Yeah,
And part of that is cold shooting. OG, McHale missing shots above the break. But I think part of that too is, I mean, Hawks had a plan of they're not going to let the Knicks shoot easy shots from the corner. They're not going to let Brunson get into rhythm, get into his sidestep threes. They're really contesting that, and they just basically bet, okay, you guys are not going to hit threes above the break, and they were pretty much right.
yeah.
13 misses in a row. I mean, the Knicks have been the best offense in basketball, albeit without even hot shooting from McHale. So I think this is probably coming a cold shooting streak, but I mean, just having it at the worst possible time. Trae finally gets into a bit of a rhythm. Jalen Johnson is getting going the third, and things just really came together. It's just a classic, quintessential one game elimination. And teams like the Hawks are just absolutely perfect for it. And I think that's why I just love the Cup because we can have a conversation. We will have a conversation right now about if we've been sleeping on the Hawks, where they're going to go, are they a playoff threat, etc. But these teams are built for the NBA Cup. They have an opportunity to show themselves because they can steal a game, and they've been doing it all season. I mean, they're just such. Let's just talk about it right now. They're such a confusing team to me because you want to look at their win loss. A couple games over 500, great. You look at some of their losses. I mean, I'm a little confused. They lost twice to Washington. They lose to Portland. They lose to Detroit. And then you look at the wins over Cleveland, Boston, and then maybe we find a trend here. So they beat Boston. And since then, they've won 10 of their last 15. And like we talked about in this game, where they had a 48 true shooting percentage, which is horrendous. It's horrid. It's disgusting. And you saw it on the court. I mean, just it was an inefficient night. They win these games through grit. Their defense, their rebounding, second chance opportunities. Through this stretch of 15 games, they have a defensive rating of 112.8, and they're on the doorstep of top 12. They're a couple of good defensive efforts away from being, top 10 in the top 10. Um, and obviously Dyson Daniels has a lot to do with that. Risa Shea, who you mentioned, I mean, his stats are not jumping off the page. Before anyone jumps at us and says, "Oh, he scored 1 for 8," that's not the point. I mean, you see his length out there. Like he's active, he moves his feet. He's a very big wing, and he moves really well for his size. And I think even the pressure he's putting on the rim is a little bit more than we anticipated with his athleticism, and just does a lot of the little things, especially on the boards. But all these things to say, like, surprising to me that a Trae Young led Hawks is winning through defense, rebounding, effort, all the little things. I mean, maybe shout out to Quinn Snyder. Um, I mean, I guess you would have thought Nate McMillan would have had that effect on this team in the past, but I think it's maybe more to do with the inspiring effort you see from Dyson Daniels. When you see a guy like that hustling on the court with you every single game, are you not going to hustle that hard? Zachary Risache, a guy who's, he's going to have to get his minutes through defense. Jalen Johnson, how do you feel about Jalen Johnson? I mean, he's really making his name known for most improved this season. He's looked so good.
Now, he was the guy going into this year. He was the guy we were watching. We were kind of almost forgetting about Trae Young. It was about we weren't even thinking about the number one overall pick in recent. It was Jalen Johnson. He was the guy for Atlanta. He kind of made his splash last year. Obviously, he still had some injury troubles last year, so we didn't like fully get to experience it. But we thought there was something there, and now we're seeing the full force of that again this year. He's probably been their best player in terms of on both ends what he's doing overall. And yeah, like he's absolutely in that conversation. He's that guy. Everyone's just slowly mentioning every time you bring up the Hawks. You go, oh yeah, that Jalen Johnson guy. Like I'm really looking forward to watching him. That odd time that they're going to be on national TV, like Wednesday, like the Hawks aren't going to be on national TV that often. But it's when it's games like that where it was on ESPN. We'll have games coming up this weekend in Vegas, and the guys will all be looking and pointing out what Jalen Johnson is doing for this team on both ends. Like he was the star the other day. Was it 21, 15, and 7? Like he's doing a little bit of
Everything.
everything, and he's doing
Everything, yeah.
it pretty efficiently as well. Like this guy is a serious talent. And like we were saying earlier in the season, like I think he is the guy that ultimately this team is going to be built around. He's going to be that guy that is the leader of this team when they're going towards more playoff contention. And I
Mm.
think this year I don't see them doing a Pacers run unless because like that's not. I think Trae Young. Pretty sure he's still shooting below 40%. Pretty sure he is.
Want to
Um,
know.
so he's still shooting below 40%. How much can he get exposed in the playoffs? How much can we rely on? Can Dyson Daniels be a guy who's like close to a 40% shooter in the playoffs? Little things like that. I think like a playoff run, I think is going to come too soon for this team. But they're using the cup as like their grounding, and they're building a culture around defense, and that's always a great place to start for any young team.
Yeah. And just to sidetrack from Jalen for a second, just to mention Trey, he is having a career lows in scoring for sure. 31% from three. And I mean, effective field goal percentage 46%. That's the lowest he's ever been at. Only scoring 21 points a game, but leading the league in assists, 12.2 assists. Really able to play in this facilitator role, which he's always felt most comfortable in. Um, but I mean, absolutely. Like, where does this team go? I think it goes as far as Jalen Johnson can continue to rise. And I mean, we talked about in the offseason what he can improve on the on-ball scoring. Done a lot more of that. I mean, you see he's a three-level scorer. And he can get downhill, and he's not just going to try and rise over the top and dunk it or get a foul. Like he's got his floater game working on that. He can slow things down and get into his mid-range game. He can post up small defenders. And then if you take him off ball, I mean, we've known him as a really, really good finisher. Like last year, that was his calling card, and he's still doing that. You still put him in the corner and have him cut weak side. I mean, have him do his 45 cuts. I mean, he's just always a threat to get to the rim, whether the ball's in his hands, out of his hands. I mean, he just does it all. And at this point, players like this, as they're just adding little things to their game, it really makes you curious. Like, all right, how much further can you go? Because I feel like these are some of the players that we kind of underestimate when they make these marginal changes. Because we had questions about the on-ball scoring. All right, it's coming along. Had questions about the, adding some facilitating. That's coming along too. 3-point shot. Let's talk about all these things in the last 15 games. So he's averaged in the last 15 games 20, 10, 5.5 assists, 5.7 assists, rather. 39% from three. Only other players with these stats, Jokic, Giannis, Tatum. Well, not the 3-point percentage, obviously. But with these scoring, rebounding, assists, Jokic, Giannis, Tatum, Sabonis, Alperen Şengün, Jalen Johnson.
Yeah. I
That's a
think
pretty good list to be on.
I feel like his growth is like eerily similar to kind of what we're seeing from J-Dub in OKC. Maybe you can make the argument like
Mm,
J-Dub's a more natural scorer, obviously not quite the
yeah,
same rebounder, but like in terms of
yeah,
like just slowly like adding more and more to his
yeah.
game, it's been very, very similar.
No, absolutely. The two Jalen's. I mean, the fact that they can do it all, they really fit into any scenario. I think as a whole, this together with, Risa Shea still, coming into his own and not scoring efficiently, and Trae Young definitely not hitting his stride yet. I think there's a lot to be said for how much better they could be. I mean, their offense has not been inspiring. It's been an all-around effort. So if Trae Young's offense can come around and he can really get into a comfortable rhythm this season, that is the X factor. So I mean, yeah, I don't. There's no evidence right now that we're convinced they're going to have a Pacers run, but if there's going to be a time for Trae Young to rediscover himself, I think it's this team. I think this team gives him that opportunity to do so.
Yeah, well, that's fair. And then we have on the flip side, we have the Knicks, whose offense has been amazing, but they need to figure out what the hell they're doing defensively because the second their offense goes cold, they lose. That's what we saw Wednesday night. They could not rely on their defense to get them stops when they needed it, when their shot wasn't going down. They could not rely on their defense. And when that happens, you lose games and you lose games in big moments when you cannot rely on your defense. I mean, they were up 7 at the half. They extend that to 10 early in the third. Then Hart misses a layup. Then Jalen Brunson misses a layup. Then from the 9:50 mark to the 4:42 mark, they put up 4 points. And Cat and Brunson combined for 3 points in the third quarter. Like, what? That is absolutely awful. I mean, uh, watching that third quarter was just like, this is like all the bad we could ever expect from this team just all came out right at once in that third quarter to lose us that game. Like I was feeling good going into the half. Like it wasn't anything amazing, but it was just like we're gonna have that little bit too much for the Hawks in this game. We're gonna have enough to get this job done. And Brunson, I mean, probably one of his worst games as a Nick in terms of scoring, shooting percentage, all around just bad. He had more turnovers in that third quarter than he did points. Like when has that ever been a thing for Jalen Brunson in a quarter as a Nick? Uh, it was just so ugly watching that game was tough, and that it was also the element of okay, Jalen Brunson's not going off, and it just showed the reliance we still have and the need we still have for him to be our best offensive player because we couldn't rely on Cat or Mikal Bridges to fill that gap, which is what we really needed to. Like we
Yeah,
needed to see Karl Anthony Towns drop 30, go 5 and 9 from deep in that game. That was what we were crying out for. But instead, he had one of his kind of Cat games where a few stupid offensive fouls, he gets into a bit of foul trouble. He misses kind of some key moments, and then that was the bad side of Karl Anthony Towns. But I mean, to put it simply, I don't expect the Knicks to win many games in a season when neither Brunson or Cat score 20 points. And I definitely don't expect them to win many games when our three shooters in OG, McHale, and McBride combine 3 for 20 from deep.
yeah. I
They're, they're,
mean,
they're not winning games playing like that.
no, that's fair, and I think a couple things. You mentioned the defense, and I think one thing, um, the Hawks are the best. When you have Trae Young, you have the kind of vertical finishers that they have. They are the best lob team in the league. They're just going to get it on you eventually. But I think especially on the Knicks, where I feel like there's just kind of a lack of communication on the floor when they go in these stretches. The backline defense, no one's talking,
Yep.
and there's just I'm just remembering you're just envisioning a 5 possession stretch where like 3 out of the 5 are just a backdoor cut to a lob.
Yep.
Cat's supposed to be splitting the two guys. They should be communicating who's taking the cut and just easy lob. and everyone kind of looks around, hands in the air. And it's always surprising me when I see stuff like that from a Tibbs coach team. Like that should just be totally unconscionable for a guy like him to be watching that happen. So I mean, I think the communication needs to be better. I know Cat's not a generational rim protector, but there needs to be better cohesion on the floor, especially if you're going to be doubling Trae Young 5 feet out from the 3-point line. Like the second they started getting aggressive on Trae, like their offense really started to get humming. Uh, and then in terms of like where they go with when things get cold, I mean Jalen Brunson, I mean he's going to be having nightmares of Dyson Daniels for the next few nights. Like that's you can credit Dyson for the struggles that Jalen's having. I mean he in the 2 games against Dyson this year, Brunson's averaging 17.5 points per game, under 40% from the field, 49% true shooting, and he's a minus 2.5. I mean, dude has had some rough games against Dyson this year. But I mean, you got to find offense elsewhere. Obviously, like you hope that McHale can get back into rhythm in the half court. But I mean, they just need to do a little bit better job of like making some plays defensively. I mean, they are
Yeah,
going to be,
it starts on the defensive end.
yeah,
That's the whole thing. They got nothing there, and like obviously it was easier last year. Our defense was built around always having a center there, where whether it was Robinson or whether it was Hartenstein. And don't get me wrong, like that is the easiest way when you have a legitimate rim protecting big man in your lineup that knows what he's doing and he's like aware defensively. That is like the easiest like starting point for a defense in a lot of ways. But like hopefully we're gonna get Mitchell Robinson back, but we don't just need him back. We need him fit and firing and ready to go. And we also like it's not just as simple as that. Like Cat needs to do more for us. I think it's been helpful to have Precious back in there because I think he's
yeah.
like so much better than Sims. Like Sims, I'm sorry,
We
he's just
we're at that point. We're at that
not the
point. Yeah.
guy. So like we are really getting desperate now, and like hopefully this is just a bit of growing pains. Still early in the season, and we're kind of going to a transition. Like we don't have that center that we can just like, kind of build our defense off. So there's an element of Cat needing to do better and getting talking more, but it's also just like a different way that we're playing and we're trying to figure it out. And hopefully that just starts to come more and more as we play more games. So I'm not like going to hit the panic button or anything like that, but they got to figure it out defensively, or else this Knicks team's going nowhere this year.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the final point on that is, can they find a different gear when Jalen Brunson's not going? If he's struggling in the half court, can they play a little faster? I mean, they have the guys to play faster.
Yeah.
When you get units of McBride out there, and Josh Hart, where they can run the floor. We know Mikhail can run the floor. Precious can play fast. Like, can they do a little bit of that? Because they are dead middle in pace, which you're going to have when you have Cat and Jalen Brunson and the methodical play they can have. But it felt like they weren't able to really go to that gear and kind of match the speed at which the Hawks were playing with. And then, I
But
mean, just not creating any turnovers. Like they are
yeah.
26th in the league in creating turnovers this season. And that's crazy to me when you have a guy like OG who's averaging like 3 stocks a game. I mean,
He's like he's been our whole defense. He's
yeah,
keeping everything. He's keeping them slightly afloat in a lot of areas. And I think, like you mentioned, the pace. I think that's why campaign was in for a longer
yeah,
period than usual in the fourth
hmm
quarter to try and pick up the pace a little bit. Like that was the way that they were looking at it and trying to get that done. But it came back to defense again because they got back to within 6 in the fourth quarter. Got back to within 6. Josh Hart led us on a little run. He got hot at the right time. We got to within 6, and then in the blink of an eye, it was 14 because they just couldn't get any stops.
yeah, yeah. But end of the story, I think, we look at this, there's room still for improvement for the Knicks. Um, it's demonstrable to us that they can be so hot as an offense, but without them really focusing on the defensive end and finding that identity there, that there are going to be games like this, and if they're going to be vulnerable, especially when you're playing, some of the better teams in the East. Staying in the East, Magic and the Bucks, we thought that was kind of going to be a layup. We're going to watch a team without Franz, obviously without Paolo Banchero, that they're just going to lay over. But if we know anything about the Magic, we knew that they were going to come out to play that night, and they they really made the Bucks work for it. Really, it came down to Damian Lillard and his heroism, scoring I think 9 straight points in the final couple minutes in order to seal the game. I believe it came in the span of a minute. But is this more so? Are we going to give credit to the Magic for the culture that they have? the depth that they have, going double big against the Bucks as well with Goga and Wendell. Going to give them credit for that amount of effort, that's something they're going to do against every team, or is this another kind of indictment of the Bucks and all the consolation wins that they've had of late?
No, I mean it's a one-off game, so I don't think you need to go too hard either way. It's like easier to show that you're kind of playing. This is it. This is for the win. This is all we got to give every ounce of everything we have. Like how different that would be if that was a game where they knew they were playing, like say like someone like Washington on the second night of the back-to-back. Like or even like another good team. If they say if they're playing like the Knicks on the second night of that back to back, how different the effort level might have been, how quicker they might have kind of faded. I think the Bucks just showed their power. I mean, Giannis was still great, 37 points, seven boards, 4 blocks, and then Dame took over. He had 28 points, 9 assists. He was 10 of 10 from the free throw line. He just showed that clutch gene. They just did what they were supposed to do, and like let's not forget, like the Magic go 6-27 from deep.
Yeah,
Bad. Another again showing their weakness there. They put up 16 more field goal attempts than the Milwaukee Bucks.
the second they
Like
they just
they
constantly
were
getting
they
worse.
were constantly getting turnovers. They were constantly like getting second chance points. They were doing things that should have been enough to get the win, but ultimately the star power came out on top in a different way than I expected, I guess. But my original expectation going into this game was definitely they would have had Franz Wagner, but the Bucks star power would still win out, which ultimately came through. We also we were talking about that Jalen Suggs attempt. He missed his last 3 shots. I don't want to go too hard on him because he was probably
No,
exhausted. He was going. He was their whole offense. He still had 32 points. Missed his last three. Settled for a three with the team down one when he was being guarded by Dame. I'm probably picking at hairs there, being a little bit hard on him to say he should have maybe tried to take him off the dribble, but like you mentioned, like you're waiting on Giannis and Brook to come over and and,
yeah,
and,
that's
and dominate him. So maybe fair enough, but they got great production from their bench. Wagner 13 points, Black 17 points, Howard 10 points. Like they kind of did all that they could to force the upset here. Just wasn't enough in the end.
yeah.
Star power came out on top for the Bucks.
I will say, so golf clap again for the Bucks. A lot of golf clapping for them recently, but for the Magic, we're gonna see what they're made of as we continue to have no Paolo. We have no no Franz, and you get 26 shot attempts from from our boy Jalen Suggs. And yes, he shot less than 30% from three. Yes, he did not hit those game altering shots at the end, but he got good looks and he took them and he was aggressive trying to score and he tried to get to that next level that we think he still has. I mean that's part of why he was a lottery pick. I mean, I think he still has that next level of can he be a a true tertiary scorer? Like,
Yeah.
all right, you need to turn it on. And I think this is a time where they can experiment with that. And then last note on that, looking forward to not just only what the Jalen Suggs as a primary scorer looks like. Anthony Black, I mean, he was really aggressive, got to the free throw line 8 times, and he was taking more shots than he typically does. And he's going to be a really, he's going to be the main playmaker off the bench. He's not just going to be there as a secondary guy, when they want to put out defensive lineups with him and Jalen. Like, they're going to really need him to initiate a lot of offense now that Franz is gone. Those two guys are going to, I think, experience a lot of growth here, and that's going to do a lot of things for the Magic as they're looking forward to the playoffs. They're going to be a team that when they meet the Bucks again, it's probably going to be in the playoffs, I'm betting. And I think this result's going to look a lot different if Banchero and Wagner are healthy.
Yeah, I think that's fair. One thing I will say, the last point I'll make on Suggs is like I thought when he got open on the side for that three, I thought that was going to go in. That
Oh, he
that
looked
looked
so good.
nice.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
looked
He was
so
in
nice. That would
rhythm.
have been to tie the game.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to go down. That was just unfortunately, make or miss league. As simple as that. Let's flip it over to the West. Where are we going to go first? Let's go with the Thunder first. We'll go Thunder, Mavs. Thunder ultimately come out 118-104 winners. I think this was the full force of the Oklahoma City Thunder without even it being the full force of them because they didn't even have Chet Holmgren in this game.
Yeah.
They just shot the lights out of the ball, go 20 of 50 from deep. That's not very OKC this season. One, shooting 40% from three, two, taking 53 pointers in a game.
Yeah.
They were just chucking that ball open, saying, "We're going to shoot enough of these to go down." Built a lead and just never looked back.
They, I mean, dude, the defense, when you have Caruso out there, um, I mean, he just adds so much more. It's just not fair. I mean, him, Casey Wallace, Lou Dort, I mean, just constantly alternating between guys who are just demons around the perimeter. Like, it never felt like they could really
How
put,
this is just how the hell did all the other competitors across the NBA let Caruso go to the Thunder? Because like look at this here, like Caruso, that we would never be saying, "Oh yeah, Thunder really need Caruso,"
no.
but him being with them is just absolutely insane. It's just a cheat code.
Yeah, it's not fair. I mean, Luca never got a break. Luca wasn't comfortable that entire game. I mean, he just the second he was touching the ball, I mean, even past they were covering him for like three-quarters of the court for half the game. Like he was just never able to get in a rhythm. And I think when you can get in Luca's head and you can get him frustrated, when you can be physical with him, when you're constantly throwing different, I mean, he hates playing against Lou Dort. Uh, but I think this rivalry keeps getting better because we have this, this hard-nosed defensive approach against kind of this heliocentric offense between Kyrie and Luca. And what won out was, I mean, not just the defense, but man, they really had a game plan in mind. They were going to outshoot Dallas from beyond the three-point line. They were taking every opportunity they could. They were getting, small and small pick and pop, which Dallas was just giving away. They're just giving away those shots above the break. And then on pick and roll, they were just sending help. They sent help too easily from the corners. OKC knew that, and they were just ready to shoot as many shots as they could from the corners. I mean, 53s.
Yeah.
I mean, with that rate, and that's a rate that we know that they can emulate, that they can continue to do that. They don't do it on a night-to-night basis. They're the most aggressive driving team. They have the most drives to the rim in the league. But when they switched it up tonight, especially against a team with the interior presence that the Mavs have, even without PJ Washington, but they, I mean, I think it was pretty clear from the get-go that 32-point first quarter, again, the third, 33 points. I mean, how strong they played coming out of the game, coming out of the gates, that this was going to be OKC's game.
Yeah, I mean, like watching this game, this is like when what we expected from OKC. Because remember, like they were the number one in 3 point percentage last season. That hasn't really caught up this year, but the defense has been there, but the 3 point percentage hasn't caught up. When that 3 point shot is falling, and we know that their defense is going to be there, that's when I look at them and say, I don't see how anyone in the West is going to beat them, and I really see them being able to challenge the Boston Celtics in a finals matchup. When you see that, like look at last night, they shot 7 free throws. They still won by 14 points. And you know why? Because they had 36 points off turnovers.
Yeah.
Like that is just those are insane numbers, and that's what we like. That their defense is always going to be capable of producing those sort of numbers because they are just able to be so physical. They're so handsy. Now they've got size in there with Hartenstein as well. Like they have everything you could possibly need on the defensive end, and then the shot when the shot is flowing. How are you going to stop this team? Like I can't wait. I hope with all my heart that we get another OKC Dallas Mavericks series in the playoffs because I think it could be even better than it was last year. And last year was a really competitive, fun series. I think it could be even better this year. And it was just funny that like you see like SGA, he I feel like he had this one marked on his calendar when they once he heard that they were going to match up in the NBA Cup. I feel like he got really excited and he said, "Okay, I didn't show some of my best form last year. This is almost like a playoff setting, this one-off cup game. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do my thing." And he more than did that. 39, 8 and 5, 3 steals, 15 to 23, 5 and 9 from deep. He went out and put on a show in against those Dallas Mavericks.
Just a casual 39 points too.
Yeah,
Never
super
forcing
casual.
anything.
Yeah.
Shot 65% from the field. 65% from the field. And his three-point shot has been much improved this year. And I mean, he took 9 threes this game. I mean,
Yeah.
talk about the Thunder's shooting 53s. Shea shot 9 threes, made 5 of them. And a lot of those, off step backs, off live dribble. He's not just like spacing, like he's really getting aggressive getting to that shot and changing his shot profile a little bit. But I mean, I think end of the day, we know what OKC does. If you haven't heard already, they are leading the league by a million, million, million miles in deflections and in steals. They're leading league history in steals per game. And
Hmm.
that's totally sustainable. Like all the playmakers they have, the aggression that they have on the perimeter, it's not just a couple guys lead. It is literally
Hmm.
everybody, top down, everybody who can create these turnovers. And then I think last point on them is just the depth. Hartenstein is back. He just fits like a glove, like we thought he would there. Cambridge Williams, I mean, he's been super unheralded there for a while, but he's always going to give good minutes when you give it to him. And just, I mean, it really, anyone they put on the floor is constantly producing. But the Mavs, they're not one dimensional, they're two dimensional, maybe a little three. But if you can take away the lob, you can take away the pick and roll, you can really get in the head of Luka, which is not easy. I mean, that is like what, second best offensive player in the league. I mean, maybe Shea has something to say about that, but I mean, to be able to do that, you really kind of kill what they can do. Um,
Yeah.
it's going to be tough for them in the playoffs if PJ Washington is not healthy. He just adds a dynamic to them that kind of they fall apart a little bit when he's not on the floor.
Yeah. He obviously just an illness. Apparently, there's been a bit of a bug going around in Dallas. That kind of, I think, like half their players have picked up over the spell. So that was the only reason that he was out of the game, which is obviously unfortunate. But yeah, just watching that game, it's just definitely one where I'm like, yeah, I really want to see this in a playoff setting again this year because I think it could even be it could go one better than it did last season. But then final game,
Most
the
exciting game, which was the lowest scoring game
the
somehow.
most exciting in the weirdest way possible. But damn, it was the Houston Rockets. They did it. They finally did it, and I'm pretty sure this was the only one where we both predicted it correctly. I think we both leaned towards the Rockets getting the job done here.
Oh, we
Am I
almost
right
missed
in
it.
saying that? We almost missed it. The Rockets tried to prove us wrong, but the whole game, it just looked like okay, Rockets defense is there, but they just don't have the offense to win. It was like looking ahead to the playoffs and thinking, yeah, they're going to be competitive in games, but they're just not going to have enough to be able to get the win. And again, the usual thing with the Warriors, which what I'm always going to think, as long as it's Steve Kerr and Steph Curry with the Warriors, is that they're always just going to have enough 3-point shooting to get over the line in these games. Like they didn't shoot amazingly from three, but they made some timely ones in this game, and it just looked like it was going to be enough to ultimately win out the game. But then the Rockets came back. Jabari Smith made some really timely 3-point shots. Van Vliet really, really struggled, only had 8 points, but he made that 3-point shot with 116 left to pull them to within three. Then the defense just took over, and this is a defensive battle, and ultimately the Rockets defense won out.
I mean, I think the both defenses. I mean, you just got to give credit there. A lot of this was um, not just a boxing match, but a little bit of chess. Um, you see that in the fourth quarter, Rockets go small. They put Jabari at 5, so Golden State counters that. They go with Green at 4, and they bring in Looney at 5. They're getting more boards, look a little stronger inside. Rockets aren't able to bully them as much. And Rockets have just been aggressive on them all game long on those screens, really hedging, getting over early switching. And Kerr hadn't gone to this too much, but they really start getting a lot of slips, easy baskets off of those, kind of taking advantage of what the Rockets have been doing all game. And that's how they build this 8-point lead. And there's 2 minutes left. I had this 8-point lead there. And it feels like with the slog that the Rockets had been in, with how much pressure that Golden State has been putting on them on the perimeter. I mean, they were just kind of living and dying by is Fred VanVleet can hit a three because it seems like Jalen Green kind of gassed out. He had his one run, I believe, in the second quarter, but it was just going to come down to Şengün and Fred VanVleet, which I have more comments on in a bit. But I mean, credit to Şengün for taking advantage of Looney one on one. I mean, they spaced out. It was crazy to me that the Warriors, I mean, didn't double to think that Looney's going to take him one on one. You just need to have more respect for Şengün.
Yeah.
In a game tying in a down by 3 situation. I mean, I understand that you don't want to give it the 3 to tie for sure, but Şengün's he's too good in the post. I know Looney's a great defender. You want to trust him, but one on one, he's going to score that. Um, but without rambling too much about what happened at the end of the game, um, let's just get your take on the foul call. Was that a foul?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Should they have
It was a
called it?
very aggressive swing of the arm, and he got way more man than he did ball.
Fair.
Like those are just the
Fair.
simple facts. If you're
Fair.
looking at who, I don't know who was it. Was it Pazimski who also had his hands in there? I can't remember who the other guy was. If you're talking like that was just a jump ball, maybe that's fair enough. But Kaminga had a wild swing of his arm. It was an aggressive swing of the arm. It got way more man than ball. I kind of get why you would say you don't want to call that, but at the end of the day, it was a very clear foul in my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair. Um, I mean, credits Green, hits the free throws. They end up winning the game. One point of interest at the end, you see Pajinski and Buddy get into it as the game ends. And if you look at the play, I mean, obviously you assume everything's going to go through Curry. It looked like the idea of the first option was Buddy. I mean, he got the screen at the top from Green, and he flares out to the far side wing, and it looks like he's open. Like as soon as Thompson kind of died on that screen, which I mean, how often are you gonna get Thompson to die on the screen? They had the switch ready there, but Buddy had a little bit of light. Then the next option, Buddy comes back around, gets another open look, and doesn't get the ball. And then Curry just has to like cough up the ball back to Pachimski, who gets blocked.
Big
And
yeah.
we got a little drama.
The defense won out there, but that was the play there. That Pazimsi should have got caught for 5 seconds too. I think that came out
That
yesterday.
was a long, that was, yeah, that was a
He was there for
very,
a long
very
time.
long time.
Yeah, just obviously you can look at it either way. I guess the Warriors will look at it and like Hield will say that it was a mistake by Pajemski, but you look at the Rockets and say they did exactly what they needed to, not let the ball be in Steph Curry's hands. Get the ball out of Steph Curry's hands, it's a win. Maybe the other guy makes the shot, but you live with that. If another guy makes the shot, you're like, okay, fair enough. We did what we needed to do. We got the ball out of their best hands, their best player's hands, the best shooter of all time. And then like if that had gone a different way, they would have just had to be like, yeah, you know what, fair enough. We can accept that. So they did what they needed to do, and the Rockets, yeah, like their defense just incredibly impressive. I love seeing that from Şengün. That was kind of like the biggest game of his career in a way because it was like playing in this like knockout format. He's the best player on the floor, 26, 11, and 5. Shot nearly 60% from the field, goes 6 or 7 from the free throw line. There's a couple of times where he hit some big free throws. So like there was a breakout game for him. And then like just the defense again just shows the defensive power this team has. Like 30 points off turnovers in this game for the Rockets. Like the defense is real. And it's just a question of how quickly does the offense catch up to the level that the defense is at.
Yeah, I mean that's a work in progress that we've talked about before. And just to add a stat to the defensive effort, I've never seen so many shot clock violations from the Warriors in particular.
Yeah, yeah.
We've seen them turn the ball over because they really like to move the ball a lot. They're a heavy pass team, constant motion. It's gonna happen. You've seen it happen plenty of times. They're actually down in turnovers this season. Um,
And
they
it was a couple of late too. There were late ones too.
yeah, they had 22. They coughed the ball 22 times in that game. 8 of those 22 were shot clock violations.
Wow.
2 in a row, 3 and 5 possessions in the second quarter. There were just stretches where the Rockets would just completely just eliminate any offense.
Yeah.
And it's stretches like that that's like it's crazy to see. And obviously as we talked about, the Warriors were able to find a little wrinkle in the fourth to get a lead. Buddy gets a little bit hot. But I think one thing for the Warriors, it's been talked about a lot, not just on this podcast but elsewhere, but the playmaking, the shot creation outside of Curry, as we know, is just non-existent. We love what we see from Kuminga. We love the PR he's getting to dangle him as trade bait. It's great. Love the career highs. But they just need something else.
Yeah.
They need someone else to run the second unit. And it's funny because I mean like Jordan Poole obviously had just struggles last season after Draymond Green punched him in the face. That whole thing's been documented. Having a bit of a resurgence this season, but they almost need like a Jordan Poole-esque guy, just someone who's going to create some offense.
Oh, oh. It's very interesting that you say these words. That when I suggested they make a move for Cam Thomas, you said no, they don't want a Jordan Poole type player. This is a very interesting turn of events from you, Chris.
No, it is, and I think that's fair. I think the when you were talking about it, you were thinking long term about, that the way they were playing was unsustainable, and you're right. It's proven to be unsustainable. Not everyone's going to be,
She got one
in.
right. Jesus, it's a big day.
Yeah, you did, and I'll give you that. And I think I think my point still stands that how is a guy like that who is notorious for ball sticking is going to work on a team like that, and that's just something to figure out if they're looking at options outside of their own roster. Um, but I
Need to
mean, on the
grow.
on the flip coin, I mean, looking at the Rockets, that there's still so much room for growth on the offensive end. Um, we know what they like to get to. They tried focusing on Fred VanVleet, Şengün, and the pick and roll. Can Fred get into open space and get to his shot? Can Şengün get a one-on-one matchup in the paint? Can you get him rolling? And it's just living or dying by Van Vliet's three-pointers and his mid-range shots. And they are leading the league in mid-range opportunities, which
They're
for
dying in a sense so far this year because Van
yes.
Vliet has not been at the level that
No.
they need from him at all. Maybe that will turn. Maybe he's just going to have a slow start to the year. Maybe this we get to around February and he's getting into a real hot streak, which is totally plausible with a guy like Fred Van Vliet. But yeah, they're dying a lot more than than they are living by it because that's he's really struggled a lot. I feel like last night his performance 8 points, 2 and 9 from deep. I feel like we're seeing those similar sort of stat lines very consistently from him.
Yeah. And I mean the looks he's getting are not terrible. They're not bad shots. And they're the looks that he got in Toronto. And they're the looks that I'm going to read tea leaves and assume that he discussed that he was going to get when he signed on to this team. He was going to be a primary option. But Jalen Green does get his opportunities and he has his chances to go on his runs. But maybe it's time to shift a little bit that way,
Yeah.
see how much more you get from him. Jabari Smith has had a down year in offensive production, and you just see some possessions from him where he finally gets aggressive, takes a pull-up three in transition, and just sinks it. They use him as his own buster in the third when Warriors go to zone. Passage Jabari Smith in the middle, and his jumper in the mid range, he can get to that whenever he wants to. They talked about it on the broadcast, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, dude, like his length, and then we can get to a shot. It's exactly what the scouting report was in college. It's Durant-esque.
Mhm.
When he gets to that turnaround, when he can take just one dribble sidestep, like he is just too long, and that shot is too good. The release point is too high. That has to be something that is intriguing for them to look at offensively when Şengün doesn't have it going, or when he's off the floor, when Van Vliet doesn't have it going. Can they maybe look to Jabari Smith a little bit for offense? But I mean, all that to say, there's a lot more options within this team that I'm not sure that I'm still ready to pull the trigger on, talking further about getting someone else in.
Yeah, like I kind of look at it now and just kind of think like what like happens first for Houston moving forward? Is it they get desperate enough that they have to go and make that star trade, or can they keep Van Vliet for another year? I believe did they have a team option on Van Vliet, or is it a player option? I have in my head that it's a team option they have on Van Vliet. Not 100% sure. So, like, could it work out that they have one more year of Embiid after this, and then after that year, Reed Shepherd is ready to take over from Van Vliet. Like that could be so an area like they could be looking at and think that's like
Yeah, it's
a
a team
time
option
frame.
next year.
Yeah, that could be like a time frame that they're looking at. But that's also it's also a risk that you're taking in that sort of situation as well. So like that's one area that you could look to and think of them like being ready because they're still such a young team. Like it's like outside of Dylan Brooks and Van Vliet, this is a really, really young team. So like there's no like ultimate pressure that we have to do it now. But like you see how well they're doing this season, and that makes you kind of wonder. It's like, okay, so like are they going to be able to be patient? Are they going to need to take the risk? Like there's you don't know when you're going to get to this level again. So like do they just like okay, we have to go all in? It's going to be very interesting to watch Houston moving forward over the next couple of summers to see what way they think is best to get the most out of this team over the longest period of time.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, just to answer that, but my hunch is that Reed is not ready. Defensively, he's better than we thought he'd be for his size, but I think that the game is just too physical, too fast for him to be a starter next year. That would
That's
take
why
a
I'm talking
massive
2 years.
downgrade.
I'm talking
In
2
2
years from
years.
now.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, okay. I mean, after the team option for sure. Um, and I think, just an easy adjustment that they can make, is just shot diet. Don't be one of the highest mid-range shot takers in the league. You don't have those guys. I mean, Fred is never been an elite mid-range shooter. Jalen Green has been a horrid mid-range shooter. Dylan Brooks, when he's not Kobe once a month, is a terrible mid-range shooter. So those shots are, I think, just really sinking their offense and just getting away from that and increasing their three-point volume. I mean, we know that they have corner shooters. We know that catch and shoot Fred VanVleet can do that. And if they can just get to a better shot profile, I think that they'll be a lot better than they were. Because I mean, they're still going to do all the little things. They're still going to be the best rebounding team in basketball. They're still going to be one of the best defensive playmaking teams. We talked about the Thunder. I think the Rockets are right there. But just little adjustments like that, I think will go a really long way without making any personnel changes or even thinking about the long term.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's fair. On the broader side of it, a pretty nice week of basketball, a pretty weird week of basketball, but also like a nice little break for some teams. Got to get a few extra days off. Obviously, this has been a bit of a strange week. Obviously, focusing in on the NBA Cup. Got more games like Saturday. We're going to see only the NBA Cup games. Then we have the final next Tuesday, which is obviously super weird. But I guess the way they had to work it was obviously they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to step on the toes of any of the NFL games. They wanted to do it in an area they could get the most TV views and things like that, which is fair enough. But
Yeah.
before we finish out, let's make our predictions for
Let's do
Vegas.
it. Hawks.
Hawks, you're going Hawks all day.
Hawks. Let's go.
Ooh,
Caca. Let's do it.
ooh, okay,
I'm
man.
telling you, Trey's gonna have a comeback game and they're gonna get up for the Bucks. They're gonna get another dub against the Bucks. It's gonna be Dame against Trey. Jalen Johnson is going to really shine out again, and Risa Shea have a bounce back game.
Okay, I'm still going with Giannis Christ Superstar. I'm thinking Giannis gonna go all out and dominate just that dominate there.
Onyeka
I'm
Okongwu.
yeah, we'll see, we'll
Onyeka
see.
Okongwu.
I'm gonna believe. I'm hoping the
Watch
Bucks
that.
can get revenge for my Knicks. That's my hope, and I think OKC has too much offense for the Houston Rockets as well, and I think ultimately I will be very shocked if the OKC do not win the NBA Cup this year.
Yeah, they're hungry for it. I think that's kind of the easiest prediction we can make. And of course, now that we say it out loud, Rockets are going to win by 20 and win the NBA Cup. But
Rockets by
Okongwu,
20, Bucks by 20. It's easy dice.
yeah, no more injuries. I mean, we were only wrong about the Magic because Franz got injured, but I think we're on the money with that one. We're going to put
I
the
picked
money
the
on it
Bucks.
now.
Let's hope we get it right. So we're both going. We're both believing in the OKC, but we gone the other way on the East. You got the Hawks. I got the Bucks. So what do we get? We both said Houston. So we got one right there. We also both said Dallas. So that didn't come to fruition. You said the Magic. I said the Bucks. I think we both said the Knicks. Did we? I can't remember. I know I
No, no, no,
did.
no. I said Hawks. I said
Okay,
Hawks.
okay. So
I
yeah,
said Trey was going to.
we're somewhere in the middle there. But
All right, we'll
yeah,
cut it tight. We'll work on it from there.
we'll call
We're
it a
tied. We're
tie.
tied.
We're going here. We got so it's basically up between the Bucks and the Hawks because we're both going OKC. But yeah, that's gonna be fun. We got that this weekend. We've got the semifinals on Saturday. Then next Tuesday we have the NBA Cup final live from Las Vegas. So still a lot of fun NBA Cup action to come. Then we got the Christmas Day games and all the fun and joy of that. And then we get really into the meat of the season in the second half of the year when we really see trades go down. We really see teams come into their own. And I'm super excited to get into that mode of the NBA season.
Yeah, I can't wait, man.
But that's going to do it for today's episode. Chris, thank you for joining me. Thank you all so much for listening. Remember, we are everywhere on social media at Coast to Coast NBA. And most importantly, remember to take every shot and love every moment.
Peace out.